For this project, the requirements were to use a BigCommerce CMS, which is a hosted platform, and second was that it should incorporate a custom design into the system. It should have some custom functionality. For example, it should have different color variations, and so the user can select it and go to that page, and they should be unlimited slides into the carousel. It should be responsive, and original design used an Illustrator file, and his was designed. It has an Instagram feed. I believe currently it was disabled by the client, but it was there before. And what it did, it feed took images, content from the Instagram and displayed here. So this was original design, and this is a version for mobile view smartphone. And this was the design for the product. So it had a carousel here. Images can be seen here. There was also an option to add a custom gallery. And this is the custom gallery that can be updated by the user from the BigCommerce admin section. So each product has its own images, color variations, and gallery as well. And here's the design. The design code for different color variation using a color picker and the sizes that were not available need to be striped or somehow unavailable. And instead, Final Design decided to just use a real image of different color variation, and this color variations is also available to be set from the BigCommerce admin section using custom fields that BigCommerce has, and then there's multiple ways to set this up. So BigCommerce has API that can be called, and all of the fields are displayed, can be accessible using JavaScript or their Stencil framework. And this is how the website looks in the smartphone view. So content is flown and moved around, and then we have masonry gallery, which is also responsive. So originally I had to kind of rework this project a little bit, because I had to target different viewports or devices a little bit more specifically. So at the end I created a Photoshop file with multiple artboards, in this case 6. Not all of them were used in each case, but some of them were used. So for example, if I were to go about section, well, this technique I used in contact section, about, home page, but just to have a simple example, I will select about page because there's only one image, and I decided to use different versions of the image. So I use picture tag with different source images. So depending on the device width or device type, and also PPI, pixel or DPR, device pixel resolution, I set up different images to be viewed. So here's what I meant. When I set up my files, I prefer to name them very distinctly with the correct naming convention, so I can find easily later. And the structure of the files is, for me, it seems very easy to navigate as well. And so this is an example of about page. So I had this file, and This file is in my smartphone or small screen, up to 480 pixel width, and here the difference is, for example, desktop and this is that I had to either zoom in, crop, zoom out the image, so the main content is always will be visible in the device. So in a bigger screen I can zoom out and show more content, and a small view like here, or if I were to refresh the image on the live site, that's how it will be. I wanted to zoom in into the content on the primary content of the image. And so for, let's say for this image and all the main images, I had 3 different versions. So I had small screen, medium screen, and desktop. And within those versions, I also had different resolution or different dots per DPR. Different DPR, so this way when the user, let's say, comes on the smartphone, let's say iPhone, Galaxy, or any phones that have device pixel ratio 2 or above, they will be served the correct image. So for example, for smartphones, there were 4 versions of same image, depending on the, so had 1, 2, 3, and 4x, and 1 is really kind of a default, so that will never be served on the phone. So it will be either 2, 3, and 4. For example, the phone I have now, it serves a 4x version Samsung. So for example, if I were to use Pixel XL, I should be, the DPR should be 3.5. If I were to use iPhone, it will be DPR will be 3.0. So the image will be served will be this one, and it will be much higher quality on those devices. And if I were to refresh, if I were to refresh and find image, this is the correct image that's been served, the 3x. And let's say I'm on something like Pixel XL. The image will be served, this will be the 4x. 4x. So I tried to optimize the website using the images and set up different art direction for image. So I'm gonna talk a little bit how I set up these images. So I had different artboards here, to export the content and just to test it or show the client how it will look. And then I have as well, I have this artboard that I call assets, and here I have all the logos, colors, buttons, fonts located, so I can drag them to the correct artboard. And so when I set up any type of design file, graphic file like Photoshop or Illustrator, I have two folders there that they're named exactly as the source file, and one called assets and one called name asset exported. So here is what I export from this file, and again I have home page, everything is named according to how it's named in the layers. That helps me, so I have all the images, all the version of these images. So that's what comes out from the file, and this assets is what comes into file, or what's used by the Photoshop or AI file. And the way it's set up is every image I have here, let's say, it's always linked. It's linked to one of the resources here, so this will be linked in the contact page, and so contact page will be this file. And when I link them, I always link them to a Photoshop file. So I have image and Photoshop, and what I do is I rename this, I convert this into Photoshop file. So this and this are the same, but this is just a Photoshop version of that file. And the reason I do that, because if I were to let's say if I were to modify this file, I could shrink it or make it if I were to make it if I transform it in any way, what happens if I use the image, the quality of this image will be lost. So when I export it, it will look blurry. And if it's Photoshop file, Photoshop has algorithm that adjusts any transformations, and the quality always stays the same. And when it's image, this doesn't happen. So when I export, let's say, just something simple like that to show to what I do. There's many ways to do that. If I want to do something fast, I can right click and export, and I already have them named with different sizes and suffix, so this would be the version for the mobile view. JPEG, I leave it at 80. It depends too, if it could be up to between 50 and 80 usually what I do. It's also depend on the size and other variables. This is really kind of simple overview of how I generate images and other content for the website. Very basic. And something now, how I set up the files for the website. I usually have three versions: local, staging, and production. And I have the version control that I push files to the Bitbucket or GitHub GitHub, and within local files I have a front end and back end. So for something like this project, there is no front end to test. This is more like if there's a custom, everything is custom, or well, then I could use, it doesn't have to be custom, but this is, sometimes I use this. If it's content management system, usually it's BE, which that stands for me for backend. And here are the files for this project. So this website uses BigCommerce Stencil Themes API, and this is that's their newer framework they use, and they have documentation here how to run it, set it up. So it uses handlebars. One of their theming, I guess, engine is handlebars. There's many options that can be accessed by reading their documentation. So this is also the website uses this Stencil framework. So for this project, I have it modified the Webpack that was used by default by the BigCommerce, and that theme I'm using. So I'm building on top of some theme, basic theme. BigCommerce have seem like a good theme. Their cornerstone theme, their default theme. This is use different one. So the way BigCommerce runs is they have well, they have a configuration file, and with the settings, it's just JSON format, and here the settings that included by default, and then what I did is I added different variations to the default settings. So here anything that is prefixed with TWS, that was custom fields I added. So I added new colors, and these colors came from the from design files. So this blue color, this brown color, then multiple variations. So the main ones were these 4 files. So again, a primary, secondary, and it used 5 fonts. This website, 3 of them were from Google, and 2 were custom fonts that I had to convert into the WOF format 2. And the rest settings, it's kind of also were updated. So background color, the fonts again, the images, dimensions. So this is the setting file that is being used by the theme and by the stencil. So I have access to all these settings. Um, on the front end, and as well as by on the back end as well. Just for myself, I created a README file for development where I have all the fonts, font converter, where I can use font awesome and some other features. Okay, I just realized I think I was looking at the local version of this. Uh, of this project. I did this project a month ago, finished it. Okay, so this is actually is the latest one. It was in the production version. And so here's the BigCommerce also uses this config JSON file, and if I were to add options here, that means these options will be available to the admin section of the website. So to start, for me, when I start the project, I usually create content locally, and then I deploy it to the production site. And I wrote down for myself the commands. So E stands for that they won't be, so no cache, and E is the theme editor, and theme editor is what will be able to display these fields that I add in the config, I'm sorry, in the en.json file. So this is the English version for the site. So once I run Stencil, I will be given a server will be started on my local machine, and I also will have access to the to the theme editor. So I'm gonna copy this localhost. Localhost, and here's I can do the web development. And what happens here is all this data is being pulled from the live site, and I can work here, and once changes, I'm happy with the changes, then I can upload it. I also can give access to external for the client to see this content on my machine if I have it running here as well. I usually don't do that, but that's one option. And to access the theme editor locally, I have to go to this 181 port, and here's all the data that's been read. And here are some options that were added. This is kind of limited settings because it only allows certain types of setting, like a boolean, a text field, and few other ones. Stencil documentation has all the examples of what is allowed. And another good good something I used is the debug bar, and that allows me to see what's available on this page, what JSON values I have. So when I type this, I can go at the bottom, and here's all the value pairs I have access on this page. And let's say I go to and view some product. So here I want to access the certain product. I believe this Sophia boot will be here. So this will be a good example to see the values available on this page. And what I want to do is I want to go at the bottom and look for the custom fields. So these are the custom fields that use the color variant, and as well as the masonry gallery. So when I so when I set up, for example, for this project, I had there were option to create a custom 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 pages, and for certain products I created, like brand can have category, page, and product. These are for that BigCommerce allows to create. And so here the handlebars, views, files, and then here is what I set up is this SAS directory, and here are the JavaScript files. And here's what controls the carousel. I set up a slick carousel and some other functionality, and then I imported them. That's for home page. For global, I had set up again slick carousel, but that was for the Instagram feed, which seemed like to be disabled now, and Insta feed, which is a library that connects to the Instagram API to display the Instagram content. There are a few other files I set up for the menu, how menu works, because all that was custom depending on the design. Here I have the Instagram feed. Product. And here's the product JavaScript file that renders some content like dynamic fields. So I use the images loaded gallery and masonry, these three libraries. I think they're by the same person. But here there were other functionality I was testing and had to disable, but I just uncommented because all of this will be run through gulp, and all this will be uglified, minified, so all these comments won't be there in the production site once I deploy the site. So here pretty much just I had the file reader, if the field is present, to get the content, read content from where it's set up. So what I used here for the client is where they use WebDAV. So WebDAV is something that um, that BigCommerce uses, where the user can easily update multiple products, so export images, CSV files. So here's the production side files related to the images. Here are the galleries. So Sophia booth, this has 4 images. This is live site again, so I'm not gonna stay here for too long. And here the 5 images were there. So once a user uploads these images using the WebDAV, then it goes to the custom fields and says mentions the name of the file. Then the JavaScript will look for that directory, check the image exists, connect. If it's successful, it will generate HTML markup, and then so actually this code is for the color variation, and this one below is for the masonry gallery. They work very similar. And once this masonry gallery is generated, then I wait until all images are loaded, and once they're all loaded, then I create a masonry gallery. So just basic JavaScript here. Style sheets. So again, also basic, nothing very complicated. Just set up variables, global site container, things like mixins, a few other things. So I have set up icons. So all icons are SVGs. So each page will have its own SAS file, and I use this for development. So it's kind of outlines where the content is when it runs. So again, once it's on production site, all of this will be minified, and it won't be there on the. I left that here just for development. So here I can. So if I were to do this and comment, I will have all the divs will have, well, not all, but the one I was testing will have their border. I also have a plugin here. I can do that here with this, but this I use it's more specific. So in production, I run this on command. So the rest is basic. I have fonts, components, colors, buttons. And here are the handlebars files. And for example, here, this is the home carousel file, which is controls this component, the slick carousel. And here I have the I am injecting the settings values from the enJSON file or config.json, and if they so this can be updated as well in the theme editor by the admin. So if this exists, display this, and here the assets URL, the one that can be updated from using the WebDAV. And also once I inject these here with the handlebars, all these fields like this will be also available in the JavaScript. So if I were to get this name, I can go to home page, and this is where I bring them to the JavaScript. And so again, this can be updated with the theme editor or on the enJSON file, which is actually also reads from the theme editor. Going back, I have set up so all of these components. I mostly I had to edit them. And so here's the default base theme, base file, and here I have set up custom favicons and all the assets. And here are my custom icons I'm bringing here with the WOF file, and these are two custom fonts I had to convert to the WOF format, and so they are referenced in this head area. Here I'm bringing the sleek carousel, and the rest the footer. This is the Instagram feed. And this is the Instagram feed component. I haven't touched this file in some time, so I'm trying to remember what I did. So here I had this custom icons file that was used in multiple parts of the website. So every time I reference this file and I included the icon type, only that icon will be rendered on that wherever I call that icon. So for example, on social media, For example, on navigation, this is how I will call that component, and I will pass the name value, so it will go and it will find close and will render this. So on the side it will be, let's say it will be something like this. I open this, so this was the close icon right here, TWS close icon. So this icon is right there. Pretty much all the files I had to update and customize for this particular project, since it used custom design. And once all the files were tested on my local machine, I would run I will bundle all the files and I will deploy them to server. And the commands were stencil bundle. And then the other one will be stencil push. I'm not going to run this now because this is just an example. The site is working now. No changes are necessary. And all these commands can be viewed as well in the stencil documentation. But that's how I set up this project, where the customer wanted a BigCommerce, custom design, and some custom functionality.